Hi and welcome to this latest video in the series explaining the law of attraction from eternalliberty.com. My name is Dan and I want to help you live the life that you desire. Chapter 14. Letting Go. Victory over others brings us satisfaction, but victory over ourselves brings us joy. David R. Hawkins. This is the third of 3 chapters on living your life daily to manifest your dreams and desires. This chapter is on the book and the technique, Letting Go by David R. Hawkins. This technique is so powerful, it merits its own chapter. I could finish this chapter here and leave the instruction to read this book as an exercise. This chapter, as with the previous 2, will not manifest the life you want. It will, however, change the way your mind thinks habitually and thereby unblock the route to manifesting your dreams. In a comparatively short chapter before moving on to part 3 of the book, I will explain how I use letting go to cure illnesses and clear unwanted negative thought patterns with rapid results. Importantly, it is also a powerful technique to remove limiting beliefs, as will be illustrated. I strongly recommend you read this chapter and then go back and read the previous 2 chapters again. In part 3, we will then look at different examples of manifesting dreams and desires, such as money or a loved one, that illustrates how to use the techniques in these 3 chapters in conjunction with the manifestation process. You may just find this chapter is the most powerful influence on creating a new life for yourself. This chapter is all about victory over ourselves. To understand what is letting go, for avoidance of doubt, I will quote some words directly from the text in the book. I quote, "Letting go is like the sudden cessation of an inner pressure or the dropping of a weight. It is accompanied by a sudden feeling of relief and lightness, with an increased happiness and freedom. It is a natural mechanism of the mind, and everyone has experienced it on occasion. A good example is the following. You are in the midst of an intense argument, you are angry and upset, when suddenly the whole thing strikes you as absurd and ridiculous. You start to laugh. The pressure is relieved. You come up from anger, fear and feeling attacked to feeling suddenly free and happy. Think how great it would be if you could do that all the time in any place and with any event. You could always feel free and happy and never be cornered by your feelings again. That's what this technique is all about, letting go consciously and frequently at will." End of quotation. David R. Hawkins, Letting Go, published by Hay House, Kindle edition. We carry around with us a huge reservoir of accumulated negative feelings, attitudes, and beliefs that are built up in our unconscious mind over the years throughout life. These accumulated negative feelings can make us miserable and be the basis of many illnesses and psychological problems. We are often resigned to them and simply explain them away as being human. We are never taught how to handle these feelings, and instead we simply let them build up. The average human life is spent trying to avoid and run from the inner turmoil of fear and the threat of misery. If we look closely at life, we could easily believe that it is one elaborate struggle to escape our inner fears and negative expectations that are being projected upon the outer physical world. In between those times in life when we are low and feeling negative, there are times when we can celebrate some external event and momentarily escape our inner fears. But these fears are still there waiting for us. We also try to escape these fears by popping pills, drinking alcohol in excess, or taking drugs, which only artificially and temporarily avoid the true problem. There has to be a better way. We could quite easily become very afraid of our inner feelings and feel overwhelmed by them if we were to look at them deeply. There seems to be no conscious mechanism by which to handle these feelings, whilst they are buried deep within. We therefore allow them to accumulate further, and finally, in the very extreme cases, we could find it very difficult to carry on living. Thoughts in themselves are not painful, but the feelings that underlie them. Recall a painful memory from early life, a negative incident or terrible event that caused painful feelings to build up and eventually become buried within. If we could surrender the underlying painful feelings, they would eventually disappear and we could forget the event. This is letting go, the surrender and release of negative and painful feelings or memories. Disclaimer. In this chapter, I will explain how I use letting go to cure myself of a migraine, and I will present how I continue to use letting go to release negativity in the form of limiting beliefs from my mind. I should like to point out here and now that I do not know, have any personal or business relationship with, or have ever spoken to the author of the book I refer to herein this chapter. I do not seek any remuneration or compensation of any kind in recommending you read this book. Further, I do not in any way suggest that what you may read in this chapter is a summary or synopsis of the book called Letting Go. The author is a trained and gifted psychiatrist, and I am not. The book called Letting Go is an amazing and profound piece of work that contains far more detail of the author's healing testimonies and many hours of well-prepared insight to lead you to enlightenment that you can read, learn and apply in many different areas of your life. I will merely explain what I did having read Letting Go and how I use it going forward in the context of this book. This is what happened to me when I healed myself from my first migraine. When I say this is my first encounter with using letting go, I should say it is my first known use of the technique. I had started reading the book Letting Go when this incident took place. I am unable to confirm just how far through the book I had reached, but it was a significant way through. I have used the approach in my way, and it proved to be so powerful in some particular area of my life. My story begins when one night I had a bout of sickness. A headache started, which I first put down to dehydration. Now, I have never knowingly had a migraine before. I have wondered if they were ever really any worse than just a normal headache. I awoke in the night with a pain that I can only describe as what it would be like if my head had been axed in two. The pain was excruciating, and it was unbearable to look at any form of light. It was so difficult even to write one sentence email to apologise for my absence from work using my mobile phone. I believe at the time I was reading a paperback version of the book Letting Go, and I must have been about 2/3 of the way through it. After perhaps a day into the migraine, I decided to give Letting Go a try. I had nothing to lose. I had been incensed having read online that there is no cure for a migraine. What this really meant is that there is no over-the-counter drug that could be bought to cure a migraine. I have for years now believed that all disease starts in the mind, and there is the cure to be found. Witnessed the numerous occasions when patients take a placebo pill instead of a medical pill, and they are cured because they believed they would be cured. I was ready to give Letting Go a chance. So, for the first time, I just allowed myself to feel the pain of the head aching. I now realise I did not do as I should have, and instead kept hoping the pain would go away by simply ignoring it. This is the normal human response. I went through the day and night waking up after a couple of hours sleeping, and then falling off to sleep again. The pain in the meantime persisted. After several hours I tried letting go again. This time I allowed myself to feel the pain without attachment or resistance. The pain did abate slightly, and I eventually fell asleep. The next and final time I can only describe as what I did as acting purely on instinct. It would be now sometime in the region of 20 to 48 hours being in a migraine. This time I got into position to meditate. I allowed myself to feel the pain, just as if I were allowing negative thoughts in my mind to live there temporarily, until eventually they went of their own accord. I was able to meditate like this for about 20 minutes. The pain remained, but it was definitely subdued. I did not fight or resist it. I eventually fell asleep again. When I woke up, the migraine was gone completely. The book Letting Go contains many other testimonies of healings the author himself experienced. It is quite astonishing, and I praise him for writing it all so expertly in a book. So what precisely did I do to let go? I did the same as I would normally do to meditate. The only difference is that it concerned physical sensations and not thoughts specifically. When we think about meditation, we think about it as being an exercise to clear the mind of thoughts. Only this time I cleared my head of physical pain. I respected my head as being a perfect creation. When I say perfect, I mean free of pain, illness, or disease. In effect, I did not give the migraine permission to live or exist in my head. I saw my head as being free of a migraine by not accepting its presence as I meditated. Some might call it faith healing. I can honestly say at the time it felt like I only had a little faith no bigger than the size of a small seed. But I was desperate. On reflection, another important thing is that I did not consider any possible means in which the healing could be brought about or manifested, as it were. I left it all to the subconscious. I did not get in my own way. In essence, this is, therefore, letting go. So whilst I only had the tiniest faith, I did trust my subconscious completely to know what to do. The word that I was used with hindsight is that I had conviction. I gave my migraine to the subconscious to heal, just as you would give your dreams and desires to your subconscious, your higher self, to manifest. Thus, when you sit down to meditate, allow all negative thoughts, feelings and emotions that flow into the mind to remain as long as they need to, and then let them leave on their own accord, without attachment or resistance on your part. Do not fight them. Let them be and they will go. Do not think about the past or the future. Just be in the now and wait for them to leave. We can see that in manifestation the idea that emotions, sensory feelings and thoughts are all connected. This is why meditation is one of the most powerful ways to manifest happiness, because it involves letting go of the negative. Read the book Letting Go and learn much, much more. Therefore, my interpretation of the technique we know as letting go is to allow any and all negative or painful feelings to live in the mind temporarily, but then to let them go. I will suggest further examples for use in different areas of your life in part 3, which follows shortly. This will be particularly relevant when we look at limiting beliefs, which appear as doubts, negative thoughts, or even painful memories. We can use the power of letting go to remove limiting beliefs, and I now do this myself daily. Now, please reread the previous 3 chapters, which includes this one, over and over as many times as you think you need. This time the content should fuse together and be more meaningful. In the first of these chapters we looked at building your faith through the development and use of affirmations. Now reread this chapter and know that if you are affirming a new belief, but it appears difficult to believe, you can use the power of letting go to let any doubts, fears, negative thoughts and limitations be released from your mind. The second of these chapters looked more at the thoughts you have during the day and how we can replace negative thoughts so that most of your daily thoughts are positive. Therefore, if you do now experience negative thoughts due to an event in the day, or even painful senses or emotional memories, then give letting go a try. Once you can harness the power of letting go in your life, you will never look back. Can I firstly reaffirm that the book Letting Go has a far more detailed description of what letting go means, and has far more examples of its application than I could ever attempt to include in this chapter. Letting go is the surrender and release of any and all negative thoughts, feelings and emotions that flow into the mind, to allow them to remain in your mind as long as they need to, and then let them leave on their own accord, without attachment or resistance on your part. Do not fight them, just let them be, and eventually they will go. The power of letting go I first realized came to me through the miraculous cure of a migraine. May I add that I have never had a migraine since this event several years ago. I now use letting go to release all forms of negative feelings, emotions, doubts, fears and disbelief on a regular basis throughout the day as part of manifesting, as I will illustrate in the next part of this book. Much more on letting go to follow.